Who is in the room, a part of the conversation, and initiating the discussion on Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Today is August the 3rd and it's Black Women's Equal Pay Day. What that means is that Black women work 579 days to earn what a white man earns in 365 days. Said another way, at the end of 2020, for every $1 that a white man earned, Black women earned 63 cents. Now, there's one more fact that I think we've got to discuss briefly. There's data from leanin.org that shows that Black women ask for promotions and raises at the same rate as white men and white women. And what I believe that tells us is that this conversation is so much broader than equipping Black women to ask for more, to know our worth and communicate our value, and to learn how to negotiate. Now, I believe that all of those are important skill sets to develop. They are important and very valuable resources and tools to continue to share. I also believe there's a broader audience and a much bigger conversation that we must have around this topic, because this is an equity conversation. And anytime we're talking about equity, we must include those in power that hold the status quo in place. So, who's been having this conversation today? I want to share with us in this video and add to the conversation 3 ways that organizations, company leaders can play a role in developing a strategy to help address these pay inequities of Black women. All right. And I want to hear from you. So if you have suggestions and tips to add to this list, feel free in the comments below to share your thoughts. I also invite you to copy the link to this video and email it to a colleague, share it with your team, share it via direct message so we can continue this conversation beyond today. All right. So here is suggestion number 1. You have to know your data. And by your data, I mean, you need to do a pay equity analysis. Let me put it in the form of a question. Has your organization done a pay equity analysis? Now, I always forget to introduce myself whenever I do these videos, but my name is Brittany Cole. I have the pleasure of serving as the CEO of Career Thrivers. We are a leadership development firm based out of Nashville, Tennessee. And whenever we get to partner with companies to help them with their DEI strategic plan, we almost always include a pay equity analysis. And what this does is it equips and provides the information that leaders need to make data-informed decisions about their inclusion and equity strategies. So I encourage you, it doesn't mean you've got to email the results out to everybody or post them on Yammer or share them broadly here. It just means that you have the tools, a tool to help you gain that clarity and to understand what the inequities may look like regarding pay within your company. Tip number 2 that's connected to that, you've got to take an intersectional approach to this work. So as you're looking at that data, you've got to disaggregate it so that you recognize the impact that race plays on the outcomes. Let me just give us a very clear calendar example of this. So in March, we recognize Equal Pay Day. Right? Equal Pay Day in March. And similarly, right, it's the amount of time, so essentially a quarter, 3 months that it takes for women collectively to earn the dollar that men earned, right, the end of the previous year. Well, it's August. So in essence, it's 4 additional months for Black women to catch up. So we have to recognize, again, and understand that when we're looking at our data, and this is for pay equity, this is really for any demographic or even employee insights or employee sentiments data that we do in the DEI space, we've got to take an intersectional lens to that information and then to our strategy. Last but not least, and there's so much here that I could share, this is probably the most complex of the 3 tips here today, is that we have to make changes to our hiring and promotion practices. So are we doing our due diligence to debias our hiring process? And yes, I meant debias, because as long as there is a human involved in the process, there will be a measure of bias. But what we can do is take a very strong look at our practices, our policies to reduce the amount of bias. So do we have a standardized approach to hiring? Right? Or is marketing doing it one way, sales is doing it a completely different way? Are we taking a look at ways to be more transparent with salary and with some of the information that would help us to reduce bias and to reduce inequalities in our talent acquisition and talent management processes? So I hope this was helpful. It's a starter of many things that we can do. The point here was just to add to the conversation and to broaden the scope of the audience for this important conversation, to say that we must include, right? We must include professionals beyond Black women to ensure that our leaders and our organizations are playing a role in closing the pay gap for Black women.